On April 9th, a US Navy MQ-4C Triton surveillance drone worth roughly $240 million suddenly turned toward Iran. It broadcast an emergency code, lost altitude, and vanished. A single MQ-4C Triton is more than an eye in the sky. It is a complex, high-value node in the Navy's intelligence network. At nearly 40 meters across, the airframe carries a sensor payload approaching 7,000 pounds, engineered for continuous coverage of vast maritime domains. The heart of its surveillance power is the ANZ-PY4 active electronically scanned array radar, a system capable of sweeping the surface for over 700 nautical miles and tracking more than 1,000 contacts at once. This radar distinguishes between tankers, fishing boats, and fast attack craft, even in the cluttered, congested waters of the Gulf. Beneath the nose, a stabilized electro-optical and infrared turret delivers day and night imaging, allowing operators to zoom in on suspicious vessels or fleeting heat signatures. The onboard signals intelligence package, the ANMLY-6, intercepts and geolocates radio and radar emissions, mapping the electromagnetic activity of an entire coastline in real time. Together, these sensors turn the Triton into a persistent, wide-area reconnaissance platform, one that does not just watch but listens and analyzes, feeding data to carrier strike groups, destroyer squadrons, and command centers across the globe. Endurance is central to the Triton's role. It can remain aloft for over 24 hours, sometimes stretching to 30, holding station at altitudes above 50,000 feet. From that height, the aircraft can scan a 2,000 nautical mile corridor in a single mission. Only a handful of these platforms exist, each costing roughly $240 million when fully equipped. The loss of one is not just a financial blow. It leaves a gap in the Navy's ability to monitor the world's most volatile maritime choke points. In the Strait of Hormuz, where every vessel's movement matters, the absence of a Triton is a blind spot with real consequences. Every day, the Strait of Hormuz funnels nearly 21 million barrels of oil, about a fifth of the world's total supply, through a channel just 21 nautical miles wide at its narrowest point. On some days, more than 80 tankers, bulk carriers, and container ships squeeze through this maritime bottleneck, each one a potential target or trigger for an international crisis. The sheer density of vessels, coupled with the constant risk of miscalculation, makes this waterway the most watched and the most vulnerable corridor in global commerce. For the US Navy's Fifth Fleet, headquartered in Bahrain, the stakes are measured not only in barrels and tonnage, but in the ability to see and understand every movement on and above the water. 2 carrier strike groups, dozens of destroyers, and a rotating force of patrol ships and P-8 Poseidon aircraft form a layered defense, but even this arsenal depends on unbroken streams of intelligence. The MQ-4C Triton is the keystone. Its radar and signals intelligence reach far beyond the horizon, mapping the strait in real time and cueing other assets to threats that surface or satellite sensors could easily miss. When a Triton goes missing, the impact is immediate. The coverage cycle lengthens, leaving gaps in the surveillance grid. Destroyers and patrol aircraft must stretch to fill the blind spots, but their endurance and sensor range fall short. Each lost hour of persistent intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance increases the risk that a hostile missile boat, a disguised smuggler, or a fast attack craft will slip through undetected. In a region where a single misread blip can trigger escalation, the loss of Triton coverage is not just a technical setback, it is a strategic liability. The MQ-4C Triton lifted off from Naval Air Station Sigonella just after 6:12 Coordinated Universal Time, climbing smoothly to its operational ceiling above 65,000 feet. For nearly an hour, the aircraft maintained a steady cruise, broadcasting a transponder code 7400 that is invisible to most civilian radar screens. In the Navy's playbook, 7400 is a non-standard squawk reserved for a specific emergency: loss of the command and control data link. This code signals that the drone has lost its primary connection to ground operators, forcing the onboard autopilot to take over. Normally, the system would initiate a return to base route, following pre-programmed waypoints until the link could be restored. But this time, the anomaly did not end there. At 7:52 Coordinated Universal Time, the Triton's transponder abruptly switched to 7700, the universal distress code recognized by every air traffic controller in the world. 7700 means a general emergency, anything from catastrophic system failure to imminent loss of the airframe. The shift from 7400 to 7700 is rare and deeply alarming. It suggests not just a communications problem, but a broader crisis unfolding in real time. Within moments of the code change, radar logs recorded an unexpected deviation in the aircraft's heading. The Triton, designed to follow strict flight corridors, now appeared to be veering off course, its intentions unclear, its fate uncertain. This sequence, the silent 7400, the blaring 7700, marks the moment when routine surveillance gave way to a military emergency, setting off alarms across the Fifth Fleet's command network and raising urgent questions about what or who had just reached into the Navy's most advanced unmanned system. At 0758 Coordinated Universal Time, telemetry captured a sudden 30-degree right turn, an unplanned shift that pointed the MQ-4C toward Iranian airspace. The flight path, which had been locked on a predictable corridor, now veered off course without warning. Within seconds, the altitude trace began to plummet. The drone, engineered to cruise above 65,000 feet, started a rapid descent. By 0800 Coordinated Universal Time, it had dropped to 45,000 feet, a loss of 20,000 feet in just 2 minutes. This was not a controlled return to base. The descent was steep, abrupt, and out of character for the Triton's programmed emergency routines. At 0804 Coordinated Universal Time, primary radar contact vanished. No further ADS-B pings, no Mode S replies. The aircraft simply disappeared from every military and civilian tracking network. The last known position placed it near 26.5 degrees north, 54.2 degrees east, just off the Iranian coast. A retired Navy operations officer, briefed on the incident, described the alarm sequence as the kind that makes your heart stop. Every warning light all at once, with no time to react. The timeline ends here. A $240 million asset gone in less than 6 minutes, leaving behind only questions and a blank space on the radar. Redundancy is the watchword in the Triton's design, but even the most advanced architecture is not immune to cascading faults. The aircraft's flight control relies on a network of pitot-static sensors, inertial navigation, and sensor fusion computers, all monitored by 4 independent flight control computers and dual full-authority digital engine controls. When an anomaly appears, such as inconsistent air data from blocked pitot tubes or a sensor fusion glitch, the system can enter a lost air data mode, shifting to inertial navigation alone. In this state, the autopilot may default to a safe descent profile, prioritizing recovery over mission. If a second fault, like a power bus failure or a software error, hits during this process, the aircraft can trigger a squawk of 7700 and execute a rapid, automated descent. These failure cascades are not theoretical. Global Hawk test flights have recorded similar events where sensor faults forced abrupt altitude loss and unplanned heading changes. The Triton's flight data recorder and health logs, now classified, hold the only definitive answers. The sequence of emergency codes and the rapid descent fit the pattern of a complex internal malfunction, not a single-point failure. Without access to those records, the possibility of a purely mechanical or sensor-driven loss remains open but unproven. Electronic attack remains a credible theory, especially given Iran's investment in spectrum warfare along the Gulf. The Triton's main command and control link rides on Ku-band SATCOM, frequencies that overlap with the coverage of Iranian Kavosh and Fajr 4 jammers, both fielded along the Hormozgan coast. These mobile systems are documented to disrupt uplinks out to 200 kilometers, well within the Triton's patrol corridor. If a targeted jamming burst struck during the mission, it could sever the satellite link, prompting the drone's autopilot to enter a lost link emergency mode. That alone would explain the initial 7400 code. But the abrupt switch to 7700 and the uncharacteristic flight deviation suggests something more than routine jamming, a possible spoofing attempt or a more aggressive denial-of-service attack that confused the navigation suite. An electronic warfare analyst familiar with the region notes that a clean jam cuts the link and a dirty one scrambles the autopilot's sense of position. Yet, no open-source signals intelligence confirms a jamming event at the critical moment. The absence of spectrum data keeps the electronic warfare hypothesis alive but unresolved, leaving the door open to both technical and hostile explanations. Surface-to-air missile batteries line the Iranian coast, their engagement envelopes stretching out over the Strait of Hormuz. The HQ-9 and S-300 systems stationed near Bandar Abbas are rated to strike targets at altitudes up to 65,000 feet, the same band the MQ-4C Triton was flying when it vanished. In 2019, an American RQ-4A Global Hawk was shot down by an Iranian missile over the Gulf of Oman. That incident left no doubt. Missile fragments, wreckage, and official video proved the kill. The Triton's disappearance, by contrast, offers no debris field, no plume, no public satellite images of a missile intercept. The timeline fits the window for a kinetic engagement with an abrupt turn, a rapid descent, and a total loss of contact. But the absence of physical evidence is striking. Maritime security analysts point out that Iran's air defense posture has grown more assertive since 2019, with increased radar coverage and readiness drills in the Hormuz sector. Yet, without confirmed wreckage, the missile theory remains an open case. The lack of debris is not just a technical gap, it is the unresolved center of the investigation, leaving the question of hostile action hanging over every assessment. An aircraft designed to see everything vanished without warning in the world's most contested airspace. Today, the Strait of Hormuz remains a proving ground where technology, strategy, and uncertainty collide. When even the most advanced assets disappear, every calculation about control and risk must be reconsidered. What do you think happened?